we're gonna be comparing the BRN 180 Gen 3 against the PSA Jakl. One of these ran like a top, and one of these is literally the worst AR-15 that I've ever had the opportunity to test in my entire life. This is a really like a bummed out type video for me because the rifle that gave me all the issues was the one I wanted to love the most. But after thousands of rounds between both of these, one of them is a clear winner. Both of these guns are piston driven, but they're a little bit different. And that's because the PSA Jakl is a long stroke piston system and the BRN 180 is a short stroke piston system. To keep it simple, we're not gonna go into the weeds on this. The biggest difference between the two, on a long stroke, the bolt carrier group is attached to the actual piston. On a short stroke, the bolt carrier group and the piston are detached. Typically, long strokes have heavier recoil. The rifle itself is a little bit heavier. And then on short strokes, they typically tend to have softer recoil and they are a little bit lighter weight. Those are just the basics, but I wanted to let you know what that is just in case you weren't aware. So the BRN 180, although it has Brownell's name on it, it's not manufactured by Brownell's. It's actually outsourced to Primary Weapon Systems, also known as PWS. PWS, on average, has really good reputation and make quality products that work reliably. The BRN 180 Gen 3 comes in two different calibers. You can get it as a 223 Wild, or you can get it in 300 Blackout. The 300 Blackout comes in a 9-inch barrel, and then the 223 Wild can either be had in a 16-inch rifle length barrel, or you can get it as a 13.9-inch pin weld. They all come with the same PWS flash hider, which has the TPI hub mount system. Typically, whenever I'm ordering an upper or a firearm, if it's not pin welded, I really don't care what muzzle device it comes with because I'm just gonna swap it out for what I want. But when it comes to a pin weld, that can be very important because although it is possible to remove a pin welded muzzle device, your chances of damaging the barrel are very high, which means if you do get the barrel damaged, if it gets removed, you gotta buy a whole new barrel. And these uppers average about 1,199. Don't worry, we'll talk a little bit more about that later because they might not be that much. But before we get to that, we need to quickly go over what's different on the Gen 3 BRN 180 versus the Gen 2. So on the top, we have the Gen 2 BRN 180, and on the bottom, we have the Gen 3. And I'm not gonna go over every finite little detail just because there's actually quite a bit of them, but I wanted to go over the main differences that separate these two. On the original BRN 180, you have a charging handle on the right side, and this charging handle reciprocated every time a shot went off, and this charging handle also doubled as your brass deflector. The other thing you'll notice, and this is actually a very welcome change, when you would take this off of an upper, this thing would come like shooting out at you. Well, on the new Gen 3 version, they have a little switch that's right here, and you can simply hold it, pull this back, you push it in, pull it back like that, and that will release it. And then when you push it in, you just lock it like that, and then it won't jump out at you. The other thing you're gonna notice, there's no charging handle on this side. They've moved it to the other side, and you can't change the sides on this. The gas adjustment on here is a little bit different. If you look at the original, you actually needed like a tool to actually turn it. So you needed like something like this to kind of rotate it and turn it back. Whereas on the new one, it's actually, they say it's toolless, but I'll be honest with you, this thing is hard as heck to push after it gets carbon fouled. But this one has 3 positions on it for the 223 Wild, and I believe the 300 Blackout has 4 positions, whereas the old one only had 2 positions, like suppressed and unsuppressed. The next biggest difference, which is something that I really like, is the handguard. So you'll notice on this handguard on the Gen 2, there's basically like 2 pieces until you get to the receiver, and there's no QD on here. On this one, they've changed it, so now it's a single piece, and they have steel reinforcements for the sling swivel quick detach on both sides. I thought that was very fascinating. Now, there are some other internal differences on this that don't really make a huge difference, but I wanted to show you the ones that made the biggest difference. So now that we know what's actually different between them and we know all the specs on this, let me show you how I have this one set up real quick. This actually reminds me, I will have a parts list for absolutely everything that we're talking about in today's video. The best way to find that parts list is the first link in the description. I'll pin it down in the comments section. This build has actually gone through a couple of different iterations That'll make more sense when we get to the actual testing and shooting of it. But as of right now, aside from the Gen 3 upper that we have on here, I've got a few different parts on here I think you're gonna like, and I'll have more information about those over at the part list. Starting at the front, we have the Surefire Mini Scout on here. I don't have a pressure switch on it right now because I assumed that this thing came with a pressure switch, and in fact it doesn't. It's like $130 more to get a pressure switch, which I'm kind of mad about. On the front here, we are using, I believe this is the Daniel Defense front sight post, and that'll make more sense in a second. Moving back, we got the Die-Free Co. Tiger Claw. These things are like dirt cheap, and they're really, really good. I like how they hook into here. So when you're actually at the range, you can get your fingers in here and just pull it into your chest, which is quite nice. Moving back, we got the Aimpoint Comp M5, and I got it on a Unity riser. And this Unity riser actually doubles as my rear sight. So I don't know if we can get this on film or not, but you see right there next to where my finger is, there's a sight post in there. And that sight post is adjustable for its windage. There's actually a little adjustment knob right here so that you can adjust your windage, and it co-witnesses perfectly with this Daniel Defense front sight post. I actually got this idea for this from Zach from the Tactical Advisor channel when we were on a trip together. For the lower, this is the Brownells BRN 180 lower. It's almost fully ambidextrous except the bolt lock. It doesn't have ambidextrous bolt lock, it only has ambidextrous bolt release. And I really do feel that with the BRN 180, and I also kind of feel this way about the Jakl, which you'll see in a second. I feel like these guns are easier to run when you have an ambidextrous bolt lock and release, because when you got one hand on this side and one hand over here, it's really difficult to try to like lock this open based on the positioning of this charging handle. So that's something to keep in mind. Geisley Maritime bolt catch right there. This is the Magpul, I believe it's called the ESK 4590 safety selector. They have different color like inserts that you could do right here for your indicator. Shorter on one side, longer on the other. Been testing it out and it's been working really good. I actually really like the feel of it. This right here is called the Air Attack trigger. And what's interesting about this trigger is the hardware that it uses. If we pretend that this is the Air Attack trigger, which it's not, those trigger pins are built into the actual housing itself. And when you spin them, they come out. So you just take them and you turn them and they push themselves into the actual receiver holes. Very interesting indeed. Flat face trigger, and it is a single stage. There's the brake. That reset's crazy. And I believe the weight of it is adjustable inside the trigger. It's in the instructions. Really interesting trigger. Moving back, I'm using the Die-Free Co. grip with the grip plug because I didn't like the beaver tail on the back of this grip, but this plug makes all the difference. Stock is the BCM SOT-Mod stocks, one of my favorites. And then this buffer tube is skeletonized, and I believe this is from Samson. I want to see Samson. If you get that reference, you're cool with me. Oh, there is one thing that is not on here that I originally had. I originally had the Unity Tactical 4X magnifier back here. It's like a built-in housing and everything. But unfortunately, the mount broke and I can't find it. I got to send it back to them and exchange it for another one, but I've misplaced it and it's really bothering me. All right, now that we've covered the BRN 180 specs and how I have it set up, let's go over to PSA Jakl. Now, something you're gonna notice about the PSA Jakl versus the BRN 180 just right off the rip is this comes in a ton, and I mean a ton, of more and different configurations than the BRN 180. As of right now, at the time of recording this video, you can get the Jakl in 3 different main flavors. The Jakl 15, which comes in 5.56 NATO and 300 Blackout. They got the Jakl 10, which comes in 308 Winchester. Then they got the Jakl 9, which comes in 9mm. They have a ton of different barrel lengths, including different barrel lengths for pin-welded models. That's very important because they have a ton of different muzzle devices to choose from with different quick detach mounting systems in case you want a pin weld and you want to make sure you get the correct muzzle device for whatever suppressor that you're using. These can be picked up either as a complete rifle or a complete AR pistol, or you can get them as a complete upper or a complete lower. These also have a non-reciprocating charging handle. However, the difference on this one is it can be moved from one side to the other depending on what you prefer. This one also has a toolless adjustable gas block. However, this one is 6-position, whereas the BRN 180 was a 3-position. This one comes with a Carpenter 158 bolt. It comes with a 4150 chromoly vanadium barrel, and this one has a 1-in-7 twist rate versus the 1-in-8 twist rate of the BRN 180. And on average, one of these guys complete is about 1,299. That's only 100 more than the BRN 180 upper, but that's for the complete deal. But I guess that kind of makes you wonder, if this upper is more expensive than this complete gun, does that mean that this one is more reliable and better than this one? Well, we're gonna find that out in a second. But first, let's go over how I got this guy set up. So there's not a whole lot that I've done to this PSA Jakl. I've only, swapped out like 1 or 2 things. So number one, on the front, this one came with the Surefire muzzle device. And so I have the Surefire Warden. This is the blast redirector to go down range. Pretty cool. Got some rail scales on each side. And then I have a rail scale on the bottom. Then I have this guy from Emissary Development called the Handbrake. Love these. I'll have all the info at the list about all this stuff. For the trigger, I've swapped out this trigger from the mil-spec one that was in there to the Geissele Super Duty. Swapped out the mil-spec safety for the Blackout Defense 4590 safety. Then I swapped out the grip for this beautiful grip from Driven Arms Co. I just love how this angle feels when I'm shooting. And then for the red dot, I am using an EXPS3 that is just a dot. It's not the circle with the dot. Kind of cool, but I got it in tan, so it kind of matches. Now, something about this that you'll notice is different from others is the handguard is actually 2 pieces. And this one, the bottom side is black. On PSA's website, they had one that was black, but it only came with like all this Picatinny sections that were already attached to it. So I like the way it looks, so I had mine Cerakoted, and I just put it back on. But like I said, not too much going on with this. Aside from the trigger and the safety, there's nothing else has been changed. I might upgrade this stock to a B&T stock later. They actually offer them with a B&T stock as of right now, but I might have to get a B&T stock because I've heard they hold up. This one is the F5 stock. It's hit or miss. Some people say they're super flimsy. I've had no issues with it. I just don't like the cheek weld that's on it. I don't feel like the cheek weld extends far enough back, and it's just kind of annoying. But otherwise, it's a great little stock. It's been working for me, but I have not actually torture tested it. So take that as a grain of salt. So now this is probably going to be the most important part of the video from here on out. We've already gone over all the specs, how I got them set up, but this is where the rubber meets the road. So when I first took the PSA Jakl to the range, whenever I go to the range the first time, I'm just doing function checks. I'm not trying to see how accurate the gun is. I'm not trying to see hardly anything except will it run and does the bolt lock back and things like that. So the first day I took this to the range, I just threw any old red dot on it. And the first thing that I realized that made me go, wow, that's kind of cool, was this was a very soft shooting gun. Not bad, it's flat. Okay. How are the ejections?
Fucking perfect, dude, right here.
Nice.
That's beautiful.
Dude, it stays. The fact that this was so soft shooting really surprised me because this is a long stroke piston system. Those are known to be heavier recoiling, but this one, for whatever reason, really surprised me. And then my buddy Mike from Tactical Considerations was at the range with me. I let him shoot it, and he thought the same exact thing.
It's pretty good, dude. I know, right? Dude, that is so soft. I'm hiccuping so bad on that trigger, dude.
Over the course of my testing with this, as of right now, I have 700-ish rounds through this gun. And I did run into 2 different problems with this. The first problem that I ran into was I did notice that this piston system is a little bit ammo sensitive. What makes me say that is, as I mentioned, the first time I took this guy to the range, it was very soft shooting. Well, that was with one type of ammo. Well, then the next time I went to the range, I brought it out with different ammo and it wouldn't cycle. Okay, still not enough. Thank you. And at first I thought I was having a problem with it, maybe it was starting to break, and then I just adjusted the gas system and I was able to make the gun cycle again, which was good. However, I did notice once I got the gas system opened up enough to make the gun cycle, that the recoil harshness increased compared to my first range trip because I was using different ammo. That's kind of odd that it's that ammo sensitive without running a can on it. So that is something to be noted. The second problem I ran into was after I installed this trigger, I took it out to the range, and then I started getting a problem where like we would pull the trigger, nothing would happen, and it was still chambering another round. And then it turned out that my trigger pins were walking out on me. And once we pushed the trigger pin back in, everything was good. It ran like a top. And then I installed some anti-walk pins on it. That way I just never ran into that problem again.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what's going on?
I killed your Jakl, bro. Trigger pin.
Ah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's why you get anti-walk
Not
pins.
optimal.
I have to put some
Push those pins back in, gave it a little bit of love. Yeah, she was pretty good.
In regards to accuracy, this is just as accurate as I am. It's not advertised as being sub-MOA accurate, therefore I didn't test that. But shooting at C-zone steel at 100 yards in an unsupported standing position, it's just as accurate as I can be. As of right now, this is my second Jakl. I also have one of these as a pistol variant, but it's also in the same caliber as 5.56. And I will say this, both of these guns have never given me any problems, which is really surprising because if you look at the internet today in a bunch of places, there are some people on YouTube that just hate the Jakl. There's some people that are kind of in the middle of the road about it. And there's some people that love it. And typically what you'll see is everyone fighting over each other saying, I'm not a shill or that guy's a shill. It's very interesting to see. When I went into this review of this guy, I was expecting this one to fail. However, it didn't. It ran completely reliably and as expected, which brings us to the BRN 180. So when I first got this, I originally only had the upper. I didn't have this lower and all this other cool stuff on it. And so I took this upper, I slapped it onto a PSA mil-spec lower, took it to the range to do a function check. Is that a... That was a live round, but it didn't reset. I'm using a mil-spec trigger just so I can eliminate as many variables as possible. As I was testing it, I started having this issue where it would chamber a new round, but then the trigger wouldn't reset. Now with this PSA mil-spec lower, it was using a mil-spec trigger, mil-spec safety, all that other stuff. So at first I thought, oh, I need to adjust the gas settings on here. Maybe the gassing isn't opened up enough and therefore it's just not cycling far enough back to reset the trigger. So I opened up the gassing. Try this again. Yep, still doing that. Still having the same issue, man. I had a couple of guns out there with me. I took the upper off of that PSA lower because I was like, well, maybe the lower is out of spec. I actually threw it on a PWS lower. Now remember, this upper is made by PWS, so it should work better on their own lower. All right, I'm gonna try this on a different lower just to see if it's not something off with that trigger, even though it's a mil-spec trigger. Ah, did it again. No, it's not the lower. I mean, this one's working better. Now, with the PWS lower, I did notice that it worked better, but it was still having that same problem. So then I started getting all the parts that you see here, except I was using an Aero Precision lower on it, and I took it back to the range. All right, first shots with the almost completed BRN 180. Only thing different is the lower. I'm still getting the failure to reset. What? It loads the next round, but the trigger doesn't reset. ejection's going that way a little bit. Let's see. Oh no, that seems to be good. Ah, did it again. So then I changed it to the Brownells lower that's on here right now, went back to the range, had the same exact problem again. So at this point, I'm wondering to myself, did I get a defective upper? So I contacted Brownells and said, hey, can we swap this out for another upper? I don't know what's going on with this thing, but it's not cycling. And they're like, yeah, sure thing. That's the great thing about Brownells. They have the best warranties ever. They sent me a different upper. So with this new second upper, I went back to testing. Went to the range, I had it on this lower to begin with. Nope. I've just cracked open and you can see, so I didn't reset it or anything. The trigger just didn't reset for whatever reason. Then I tried it on my Diamondback DB15 lower. Nope, still does that. I don't know what the deal is. Yep, there goes the problem again. Same problem again. Had the same exact problem. And that has mil-spec parts in it, like nothing's upgraded on it really. Then I threw it back onto the PWS lower that we had from the get-go. And I will say this, that was the best that this gun had ran since I got it. And that was the first time I was able to actually get through a complete magazine without a failure. No issues out of that mag. No issues out of that mag. Three in a row. However, okay, it did it finally. Nope, still does it. It still happened quite often, just didn't happen as often as before. So then I thought, well, maybe it's the trigger. Let's try a different trigger on here. Tried a different trigger, same exact problem. At this point, I contacted Brownells again. I'm like, look guys, I don't know what is going on, but we're 2 for 2. Let's try a third upper. They sent me the third upper, which is the one that you see on here today. The other day, I finally went back out to the range in the desert, put a couple mags through this. This gun will not run, and I don't know why. Something that I haven't mentioned is throughout this testing, I called everyone that I know that has this upper. So I called Curtis from the VSO gun channel. He has a BRN 180 Gen 3 upper. I explained my problem. He's like, you know, I haven't tested it exactly like that. Let me go out to the range and do it. And so the next day he did it. He called me back. He's like, bro, I'm not having those issues. All right, cool. And that's kind of what got my brain started thinking, maybe it's the lower receiver, maybe it's the trigger group, maybe it's something, I just don't know. And I called 2 or 3 other guys that have this Gen 3 upper, and none of them have the problems that I've had. However, I'm on my third upper and they all have the same issue. Either I have the worst luck ever, or this is one of the worst uppers that I've ever tested. I don't know. I need you guys, if you've tried these, to let me know in the comments. I've tried different gas settings. I've tried multiple types of ammo, different types of magazines. I've tried different lowers, different triggers, and all that other stuff, and nothing seems to be solving the problem. So the most surprising part of this test is the fact that this PSA performed so well. and that this Brownells BRN 180 Gen 3 still doesn't function. And I've had this for 11 months trying to make it work. Unfortunately, like as much as I love the people at Brownells, the people at Brownells literally changed my life. I'm not even gonna hide that. Like those guys helped this channel when nobody else would. So if somebody walked up to me at the range and said, hey man, what do you prefer? Gen 3 180 or the Jakl? I'm gonna have to say the Jakl based on my testing and all my experience. With that said, however, I also have a Gen 1 and a Gen 2 BRN 180, and neither one of those ever gave me any issues, ever, throughout the life of those guns. I've had the Gen 1 since 2019, and I've had the Gen 2 since I think 2021. In fact, if someone said, hey, would you prefer the Gen 2 BRN 180 over the Jakl? I would recommend the Gen 2 for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it's cheaper to build and put something together than it is to pick up one of these. The second reason that I would recommend the Gen 2 BRN 180 is because it is much lighter weight and softer shooting than this one is. And the coolest part about the Gen 2s and the Jakl, both of these, because they're bufferless, you can turn them into one of these guys known as a bullpup. And if you want to know more information about that, I'll throw a video right here. Just click on this video right here and I go into everything you need to know about a AR-15 bullpup. But until next time, guys, I love you and you guys stay sexy.